I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Ready, Set, Go preview show. It is Sunday night. I am Reggie, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and definitely start this show on a sad note. It is we've been talking for the last couple of weeks about the struggles that people are having, right, with everything that is going on with Voldemort. Just adding to and exacerbating the other, challenges that we all face on a normal basis, whether it be, our health, jobs, family pressures, and other just things that go along with living. And, definitely some sad news reached me this weekend with the passing of, Jabroni. Very tough stuff. Very, very tough stuff. I actually spent a little bit of time this weekend reaching out to my family, just getting on FaceTime and just engaging with members of my family, sending them text messages, buddies, and things like that. Just talking to people, just reaching out. And so I would definitely encourage everyone out there to continue doing the same, because people are struggling. People are struggling. There is no doubt about it. And I think, a lot of people were very, very saddened this weekend with the news that kind of just spread. And it's tough. It's tough. That is really the only way to say it. So my heart and my thoughts are definitely with his family. I cannot begin to imagine. But we are going to get on with the show here. I think I'm going to spend most of the time basically talking about one topic, and it's really a continuation of things that we've been talking about over the last few live shows. We're going to kind of continue in that vein, just kind of digging into some of the details here. I want to say hello to some comic book swoldiers that have joined me here in the room. I think you guys were here pretty early, engaging in a robust conversation. So I definitely appreciate everybody taking time out of their respective weekends to actually join me. My man, Jerry, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. My Canadian brother, Rush Diehard, is in here. Andy is here. Randy Resnake. Tina, the Blue Wrench, how you doing, my good friend? Connie, it is always good to see you. Another Blue Wrench, Matt Woods in the house. Scrolling down through the names, Jeff P is here. Vanessa, it is good to see you. Glory Quest, Reggie with 2 G's, how you doing, Reggie? It is good to see you. Chris Bigger, it's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you in advance for the laughs that you are going to bring to this live stream. Definitely appreciate that. Crazy 8 Comics is in here, scrolling down through the names, seeing who else we have in here. Scrolling. Jason, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Scrolling. Right. You guys were on a tear here. Jared is in here. The Spanish, how you doing? Brian is here. How you doing, boy? It's good to see you. Climbing Comics always. Ian, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the live stream. And before we get going, I do want to give a quick shout out as we make a very difficult turn. I want to give a huge shout out to my man, Joe. Joe is not here in the live stream because he is celebrating his 30th wedding anniversary to his fantastic wife. He sent me a message the other day. He said, I'm not going to be able to join because, I'm going out to dinner, doing this other thing. It's my 39th anniversary. I said, brother, if there is no greater reason to miss a show than to spend time with your significant other and or your loved one. So shout out to you, brother. I hope that you and the wife had a fantastic time in spite of Voldemort and all the craziness that is going on. I hope you guys had a fantastic meal together. So save me a doggy bag. Send a brother a doggy bag. Just give me a little treat. So let me see. Scrolling down. All right. She spawned in here. She spawned. There she is. How you doing? It is definitely good to see you. What is this? Things are getting back to normal, she says. Thank you. Well, it is good to see you, She Spawn. As always, we definitely appreciate you. And again, people are out there going through some tough times, and I think it is important that we continue to rally as a comic book community whenever we can to support people out there that are going through some stuff, because a lot of us are. Yes, we are comic book collectors. We have spirited debates amongst ourselves, but at the same time, we are also husbands and wives and parents and caretakers and caregivers and all of that other kind of stuff. I have a flashing light. I'm not even quite sure where that's coming from. That's a little annoying. But I want to spend some time in this live stream, as I mentioned, basically talking about one specific topic. And it is the topic of what is going on with DC Comics. There was a fantastic article that actually came out. I want to say, I think it was on the 14th. Fantastic article a couple of days ago. Several people sent me either that article or versions of that article that had appeared online. And in this article, I think that we have a little bit of insight into what is actually happening and what is affecting DC Comics. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And I will tell you, there's some other content that it's going to be coming up from the channel over the course of this week. So you guys definitely don't want to miss that. But as soon as the news started to kind of circulate about something going on at Warner Brothers and Warner Media, the rumors began to circulate that DC Comics was shutting down. There was a lot of commentary out there that that Jim Lee had been replaced as publisher, that lots and lots of people were fired, that they were going to stop producing comics, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of rumors out there about things. And I think with this article that has come out, we have a little bit of insight into what is true and maybe not true. There are areas, in my opinion, that are still a little cryptic. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. And I definitely want to try as best I can to jump over to the chat to kind of see what you guys think about this as well, because I have a feeling that many of you have also seen these articles that are out there. So let me get myself organized here a little bit better. And then I'm actually going to share my screen so that you guys can actually see the article in question. This is one that actually came out on the Hollywood Reporter. And I will tell you, I think that this is a really good move, in my opinion, by Jim Lee and the leadership team over there at DC Comics, because if there is, some controversy, if there is some confusion, one of the best ways to get your message out there is to deliver the message. And instead of letting people decide what the truth is, right? Because in the absence of information, people want to fill that void in. In the absence of that, people will fill it in maybe with things that aren't necessarily true and accurate. And so one of the good things that they did is they actually got ahead of this, if you will. And they actually, sat down, did an interview. I think it was via Zoom or Skype or something like that. And Jim Lee actually answered a reporter's question. And I think there's like 11 or so questions that were asked and answered with varying amounts of, some cryptic stuff that is woven in there. But we are going to try to take a look at this thing. And the title of this thing is DC's Jim Lee on the company's future. We are still in business. We are still in the business of publishing comics. Fantastic photo there of Jim Lee posed with the super dope Batmobile. So one of the things that that kind of jumped out at me was this first section here. And it says, Monday, Warner Media enacted a deep and painful company-wide layoff. And I think by this point, everybody knows that a little over 800 people, according to some of the reports, were let go at Warner Media across a few different departments. And they go on to talk about here that roughly 20% of the staff were actually cut at Warner Media. Again, it's about 800 people, including many senior editors, let go, and a reorganization sent shockwaves through the company, through the comic book community, the distributors, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I wanted to look up was what was going on with this 20% of staff that was let go. And what I found here is that roughly 1/3 of DC's editorial ranks were actually let go. So there was a lot of senior leadership that was associated with comic books that were actually let go, 1/3 of them. And we'll talk about why that 1/3 was let go in just a few moments. The majority of the DC universe was also the staff that supports DC universe was also let go. And for those that don't know, the DC universe is actually the streaming service that was under the DC Comics, DC Entertainment umbrella. That staff was actually let go, which to some degree or another makes sense and kind of follows in line with some things that we have spoken about before, that there seems to be a focus on HBO Max, which is another streaming service that is owned by the parent company. And so if they're putting the eggs in the basket of HBO Max, they don't need a duplicative type of streaming service out there that sits underneath another sister company, especially when they can consolidate all of that content and release it via one stream. And again, so it kind of makes sense that DC Universe was impacted the way that it was. Another arm, if you will, that was affected by the layoffs was DC Direct. And DC Direct, I did not know this. You guys may know a little bit better than I, was actually an in-house merchandising arm of the company. So the people that were working in this merchandising arm were also let go. And I think that the reason that they were let go was because there was also another division underneath the parent company that could actually perform the exact same services as them. So there's this Warner Brothers Consumer Products division, which did the exact same thing as the DC Direct. So there were basically, from what I'm seeing, at least 3 groups that I've kind of been able to identify that were impacted. DC Direct, which had some synergies elsewhere in the organization. The DC Universe, which also had some synergies elsewhere in the organization. And then again, 1/3 of the editorial staff was let go. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So this one little line in here that they put about this 20% of staff didn't quite give all of the context. So I actually tried to go a little bit deeper into that one to just really try to understand who was truly impacted by some of this stuff. So one of the other things, and I'm going to kind of continue to kind of work my way through this article as best I can. I have some notes over here that are kind of keeping me honest a little bit on this thing. But one of the other things that I thought was interesting about this was this mention here: the return of Milestone, a label that features underrepresented heroes and creators. And I said it wrong, Milestone. What's funny is that over the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing a lot of like Static and Hardware. And I think Icon is the other one. A lot of these books being, shown on social media. And now we may know why that was actually happening, was because DC is actually looking to revive Milestone. I'm never going to pronounce that thing right. Milestone. It looks like they're going to bring it back. And I can't remember all the details of this thing. I think it might have been a separate organization that was started by a Black guy who ended up passing away. And I think he actually sold the company, I think, to DC at some point. But it looks like they're actually going to be bringing Milestone back. So I thought that was a pretty little interesting tidbit there. Let me scroll down and see if I'm missing anything. Yeah, I keep getting it wrong. I keep getting that one wrong. So I just thought that was interesting that they decided to make mention of that. I think they also talked a little bit about underrepresented characters and aspects of comics a little bit later in this article as well. So I'm going to continue down here. One of the first questions that were kind of asked up here is DC still publishing comics? And you can hear directly from Jim Lee. He says, absolutely, 100%. It is still the cornerstone of everything that we do. The need for storytelling, updating is vital to what we do. The organization leans on us to share and establish meaningful elements of the content that they need to incorporate into other aspects of the business. When we think about reaching global audiences, we see comics helping drive that awareness to an international brand. And he actually talks a little bit about that elsewhere, this idea of going global. He spends a little bit of time talking about that elsewhere in the article. But this next section, I think is an interesting one. When I spoke to Joe a few days ago, Joe mentioned this to me. He said, Lee says here, he says, basically, they're looking at that part of the titles that are coming out every single month. Roughly 20 to 25% of their titles that they actually release are either breaking. Let me restate that. Weren't breaking even or were clearly losing money. They decided, DC has decided to essentially cut bait on those titles that were not making money. And if you think about it, that kind of sort of fits with 1/3 of the editorial staff being let go. So we have a lot of titles that are coming out. Some of those titles are not making money, are losing money. They're going to shut those down, which means that they also will let go of that editorial staff that was there to support those titles that are no longer needed. And again, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's definitely tough, but here is my thought. My thought is that Marvel probably has a lot of titles that also don't make money and or lose money. They have the ability in some respects, because they are the market leader, to let those things be loss leaders and to continue still pushing those things and releasing those titles, even though those titles aren't making money. So is that good that they continue, Marvel, that is, releasing titles that aren't making money? Or is it better to do what DC is doing, which is to trim off some of those things that aren't necessarily driving to the bottom line? I don't know. There are different philosophies. Some people will say, yes, keep those titles going because there are some people that are reading them. Others are saying you should cut bait and you should get rid of those titles and maybe turn those print pieces into digital pieces that may still allow those people to actually read those comics just in a different format. So it depends on where your mind is. And it seems like DC is deciding that they're going to trim things down. And unfortunately, that is actually attached to some folks' jobs. And that is definitely a tough thing. So I want to pop back to the chat real quick. Doug says, an LCS owner was telling me 2 weeks ago that DC needed to cut the line by 50%. Was he saying that based upon his appreciation for how sales are going? Or was he saying this, Doug, for some other reason? I'm curious about that. Not making money correlates with implosion and improvement in quality material. Not making money correlates with, well, yeah, Milt, I had to read that one a little bit closer to make sure I fully appreciated what you're saying. You could be right about that. Again, with Marvel has, if you think about it, it's a $1 billion market and Marvel has 70% of that. Right? Rough math. They have a ton of money. And so they can kind of cover up some of those losses. Whereas, DC is basically, at, let's just say I'm doing rough math here, 30%. They're like, we can't afford to cover up those things. And so again, it's which school of thought do you subscribe to? But I will tell you, even in my personal life, my wife and I are looking to get a little bit smaller. We literally put one of my houses on the market last week. We got a full offer on the house just a day ago, right? We are looking to get small because it just makes sense at some point to trim the fat. And again, I'm looking at this from my personal life, and I can only envision what it's like for an organization. And technically I do it for an organization as well, but we're not going to necessarily talk about that. But to me, yes, it means people have lost their jobs. Yes, that is tough, but it also makes sense for the organization to continue to thrive, to sometimes make these types of adjustments. And so tough stuff there. This is definitely some tough stuff. Let me scroll down to see why is DC doing so poorly. They have great characters and great writers and artists. Here's the thing, Matt, is I don't know that they are doing so poorly. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't know if that's what it is. One of the things that if one of you guys can look this up real quick, when was it that AT&T actually made all of their acquisitions? I feel like AT&T was on a buying spree, and at some point, if an organization that is gobbling up other organizations doesn't have the capital in the bank, they are leveraging assets to buy other assets, and at some point, they have to pay a bill. Question is what is happening right now the result of AT&T having to pay a bill, if you will, right? They are looking to get tight because of Voldemort, because they haven't had this massive maybe influx of business that they were expecting to get from the movies and stuff like that that comes from the acquisition. And now they're looking to trim the fat because they have to pay a bill and they may not have the cash. That's part of, like, you know, I alluded to that in the last live stream that we did where we talked about this topic. And it was the question of, is DC Comics making these decisions, or are these decisions being made for them by the mothership? And maybe somebody can look that up real quick. But I too, like Doug, I actually talked to a couple of my comic shops, and my comic shops actually told me that DC has indeed cut some titles. I think one of them said they DC basically cut about 5 titles, and they felt like there could be a few more that get cut as well. So I'm actually having to pop over. I actually lost my my feed, so I'm gonna have to pop over real quick to the YouTube machine so that I can actually see what you guys are seeing. It's going to be a little bit difficult for me to track it, but so Milt says, would love to see DC and Marvel put out 1 or 2 books that are test books like Premiere or Spotlight. AT&T is a 150. Oh my goodness, Patrick on the quick Google search here says AT&T is $150 billion in debt. And again, my guess is a lot of that is from the acquisition of various companies over time. Again, probably lots of overhead, lots of salaries and things like that. So what is this? I think if DC movies did better, they'd be able to keep their titles that are losing money. This says God's Perfect Idiot is making that point. I don't disagree with that, brother. I don't disagree with that because, you know, there's one of those things, like I was just making the point about Marvel, that if you're making lots of money, you can use that money to cover up some things that aren't necessarily making money. And it's one of those things that if you're having lots of success, people don't necessarily come and look for problems. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're doing really good, people are like, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not doing good, that's when the mothership, that's when the others come and start to look and nitpick and start to get in your business because you're not bringing in the money. And had the movies made lots of money, had Voldemort not hit, we might not be having this conversation. We might not even be talking about this. Universal Export says Voldemort is definitely a time for introspection by companies, and they'll be making moves to become relevant and sized better. Well said, brother. Well said. Because that, you know, I think, again, it's one of those things that we as people do. And I think it's one of those things that organizations are starting to do themselves. So there was another question here. And there was another question here, which I think is an interesting one. It says, you now have 2 interim editors in chief, and it goes on to talk about who these 2 people are. How does that work? And this is interesting because I think it was something Harris. One of the senior guys was let go, and now his role is basically being filled by, I'm guessing, 2 junior people. One of which was head of digital strategy, and the other, I think the YA is like young adults. I think that's what it is. And you can kind of see how Jim is responding to this. He says we thought it would be great to pair these 2 together to help draft and organize the content we're doing along these lines across digital, across global. We want to make sure that we have diversity and inclusivity and making it in a way that we have the authenticity to the storytelling that we're doing. And so there's a couple of things in there, right? Basically what he's saying in a couple of different ways is that they're going to be looking at digital. And he talks about this elsewhere. He keeps bringing up digital. He keeps bringing up global in a few different places. So I think that DC is starting to look beyond, right? They're starting to look beyond the US to say, where are these other sources of revenue that we can tap into? Because as someone pointed out, the mothership has $150 billion in debt, and they're talking about diversity, which is why they were talking about Milestone earlier. And they talk about some other things, inclusivity. They talk about authenticity, and he talks about that as well, about looking for creators in other countries to be able to create content, possibly that is deployed via the digital, in order to build up this grassroots audience that might then result in them printing a comic for that audience after they've had that test bed. And I think I just saw someone in the room say Marvel and DC should do something like Spotlight and Premiere. I think DC may actually be thinking about that, doing it as a digital thing instead of a print thing. And Jim actually talks about it. I don't know if we'll get into that, but he basically talks about, we may do a digital something or another. And if people start buying it and people start to like it, we then may print it for those same people, that now that there's the audience, the same way the Premiere and Spotlight and other titles used to work back in the day. That was their test bed. Now, maybe digital is the test bed. So thank you for making that point. It's a great point. And then he talks here. He says it's really about consolidating all of our efforts and having every editor involved in these directives, and also organizing, broadly speaking, in the content. And again, he highlights here essentially the audience that they're going after, 6 to 11 and then 12 to 45. I'm starting to be on the upper end of that second range there, but it's all about consolidating and an oversight to a smaller, more concentrated editorial group. So he's signaling here that we are trying to DC, that is, right size for the times that we find ourselves in now. We're trying to be more focused on this audience. We're trying to look at diversity and inclusivity. We're trying to look internationally and globally. So there are some signals here that they are putting out here. And then she waits. I think it's a woman. The reporter essentially waits until like the third question to ask, do you still have the title of publisher? And he answers in a single word, yes. and then the reporter goes on to ask some additional questions here. Let me bounce back to the chat real quick to see what you guys are talking about. What is this? Matt Wood says, I read my comics digitally, but I buy floppies and collect them. Comics won't be the same if they all go digital. I would agree with that. I too read a lot digitally, but I also buy a lot of floppies, man, because I am a collector. I am still a collector at heart. So imagine, oh my goodness, Scott brings up a really good point here. Well done. He says, imagine how the first appearance argument will be complicated with all of these digital releases. Well said, brother. Well said. Technically, the first appearance was in file name underscore, file name.jpg. It wasn't issue 1 anymore. It was file name.jpg or .pdf. Somebody dropped a super chat in here. Silver 8 Surfer, how you doing, brother? Thank you for the super chat, man. We are down. Our interface here is down, so I'm having to bounce back and forth between things. Let me see if it caught up. I think it may have. Well, we're back up. There we go. I can get back on screen. Thank you for the super chat, brother. I definitely appreciate you. Scrolling down through the comments here, seeing what else. Scott raises, again, a fantastic point right here that it could be a little complicated. Brother, it's already complicated. I'm going to be honest with you, right? It's a cameo appearance, first appearance, true first appearance, cover appearance. Is it in the third print, the fourth print, the fifth print, whatever print? It's very interesting. What is this? Regie, then what would happen? Yeah, there you go. Same point. It is going to be interesting. It is going to be very interesting how this actually shapes out. So what is this? Maybe you could just print comics from your home, and then that actually becomes the first print right there. Whenever you print it from home, that becomes the first print. But it is definitely a complicated issue, no doubt about it. And again, only time will tell whether they move towards this true digital first strategy wholeheartedly, whether it is more of an international play, whether it is a play for those titles that were not making money or were losing money. Are they going to do it for all titles? I don't know. And he makes a point in here elsewhere that they are still committed to print comics. He does make that point. So the question becomes, where and how do they apply the digital portion of what they are trying to do? Only time will tell how that plays out. But one would imagine, you know, that there is potentially a lot more money to be made by going the digital route. And if you think about it, if you are going a digital route, and I'm not saying that they are, I'm simply throwing this out there. If you are going that route, then you have to disrupt your distribution. You have to get out of your contract with your distributor who is distributing massive amounts of your comics. If you're going to trim back the number of books that you're doing, if you're going to go digital in some respects, then you may need to change your distribution partners, because that distribution partner is dependent upon you doing a certain number of books every single month. And if you're going to just change that, then you might need to go a different route, which might explain again the changes that took place before. Again, that decision still did not make good sense to me, but maybe now we are starting to better understand why they decided to break their long-standing relationship. It might have been because of some of this stuff. So there was a question here from the reporter, basically asking whether the job actually changed at all, and Jim goes on to basically say we are busier than ever. But he does highlight that there is actually a new hire, so they are letting go of a lot of staff, but they are also hiring some new people, a new person that will actually start in September. He says here, we are bringing in a general manager to the organization. My role, the way it was envisioned 10 years ago, was that I would always have a partner that would focus on the operational side. The general manager we're bringing in has a wealth of marketing experience, global partnership experience, again, global general business development experience. That's also very key. That person will start in September. So he is going to be getting another partner after they let Dan go. And Dan was his partner for a long period of time, who I think focused on those operational things. They're bringing in another person who is not going to be called a publisher, is going to be called a general manager, to basically do a lot of the organizational work that has to be done. And so I think that this is very insightful here, because one person, because of the complexity of this organization, I guess they're saying it's not a one-person job. We need some other people that are going to be coming in, and it looks like he's going to be getting some help in September. Only time will tell who that person is, and it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see who that person is, whether that person comes from outside the organization or from within the organization. If it comes from within the organization, like the mothership, that may be a bad thing. That may be a bad thing. So fingers crossed that it actually is someone that comes from elsewhere in the organization. Elsewhere in the world out there, because there's a lot of other people that could be hired versus someone that actually comes from AT&T. So the reporter goes on here to talk about distribution. And DC in the spring broke away from Diamond as its distributor and signed with 2 new companies. Some said at the time it would be a mistake. I still say it was a mistake, like an unexplained mistake, right? Unforced error. How has it fared? And Jim, he defends it. He defends this decision. Let me find the section here. He has a quote here. He says, things have transitioned very smoothly. And I think he is pretty happy with how things are actually performing. And he goes on to actually brag a little bit. And I don't think that this is a bad thing. We've gotten some tremendous numbers on some recent books. We're back to press on the Joker War storyline that has been running in Batman. Multiple printings on that. In fact, every issue since its launch has gone up in numbers, and you know how hard that is. Usually when you launch, you start big and the numbers go down. But here, it's climbing issue to issue. We got our numbers for 3 Jokers, and the first issue sold over 300,000 copies, and that's an $8 book. That's a gigantic number for having new distribution. That amounts to $2.4 million that DC actually brought in off of that one title. And again, that's what I was saying. I don't think that DC is doing poorly. I think that they are actually doing pretty well for themselves. If you think about Deceased, what's going on with Batman, the death metal stuff, the three Jokers, the Joker War. I mean, I don't think that they're doing terribly. And again, there's a lot of people out there in the chat right now that read a lot of these DC titles, and they will probably say that DC is putting out some pretty good content. So, let me this quote right here is pretty interesting. This wasn't about taking our distribution business place. I'm sorry. This wasn't about taking our distribution business and placing it in the hands of two entities. It was about what can we do together to do things that were never contemplated before, things that we would love to do to grow the physical market. That is super cryptic. That is super cryptic. I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you. I mean, he's essentially saying there's some stuff that we wanted to do. Diamond wasn't on board. So we found two new partners that we're going to do this with, and we're going to grow the physical market. To me, it may sound like a commitment to continue producing physical comics. It may be that they're going to change how comics are distributed, maybe different outlets. I really don't know, honestly, what to make of that particular comment. It seems super cryptic, and I'm guessing on purpose, because if I were interviewing, I'd be like, so, Jim, what does that mean, bro? Like, really, what does that mean? Somebody else just dropped a super chat. I apologize. I can't see those in the other window. Let me bounce back. Let me see if I can see it. When I'm reading that stuff, I miss a lot of those. So you have my apology. Lee D. Scrolling. I appreciate the super chat, brother. Thank you for keeping it fun, my friend. Let me see. Scrolling down through these names, see what else you guys are talking about. But again, this is some pretty interesting stuff, man. Lee's throwing down the hammer. He's got one of those guns with the dollars that shoot out. That is some serious money. 300,000 copies. So here's the thing. If any of you bought basically the first issue of the Joker, the three Jokers, forget about it. Forget about it. Go look for the follow-on prints, because 300,000 copies, that is a lot of copies in this day and age. Go for the second, third, fourth prints. Trust me on that one. The ratio variance, that'll be the way to go. 300,000 copies. At $8 a book, again, $2.4 million. That is a ton of cash right there. So Doug's like, too soon. Too soon, Jim Lee. Man, I know. It's a good, but you know, he's trying, you know, I'm sure that he didn't mean it that way, right? Because I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Jim Lee. So I'm certain that he did not mean it that way. But yeah, Jim, you just 800 people, bro. Just keep it tight. Scrolling down. There you go. A couple of people saying a couple of good things there. What is this? I bought a Joker War series, hoping it's a good read. Scrolling down, DC had to make all those cuts to fund the Snyder. Gosh, I hope not. It better live up to the hype, man, because people are excited about that one, man. People are excited. Scrolling down, too much modern spec, says Milt. Jim is always trying to stay positive. I think that that's in the dude's spirit, man. I really do. I just think that that's in his spirit, to be honest with you. So 300,000 books. No thanks. Too much money for all those books. I can wait for the second print. Man, I think I'm gonna be right there with you, brother. Somebody reached out to me earlier and was asking about later prints. And I'm like, hey, at one point in time, they may have been the redheaded stepchilds, but right now it looks like the second and later prints are actually not a bad way to go. But again, you need the first print to be successful in order for the second and follow-on prints to actually make some kind of sense. So it's definitely going to be a balancing act. And it's one of those things that at some point the game will change and it'll shift a different way. So this is another question. I heard rumor this week that DC is going to only sell trades and OGNs and make a deal with Marvel for them to publish DC's comics. We'll just stop right here where Jim basically laughs. He laughs and then he says, why would we ever do that? So again, it sounds like they are committed to comics, and the editor, a reporter goes on to say, "What about the rumor that AT&T hates comics and wants to get out of the comic book business?" Now, pay attention to this one. I don't think that they want to stop us from publishing comics. Comics serve a lot of different purposes, and one of them is it's a great way to incubate ideas and create the next great franchises. We want to continue that. Why would you want to stop that? Why would you want to stop creating great content that can be used across the greater enterprise? Again, I think that is a fantastic point. Essentially, what he is saying here is that the great ideas come from here. AT&T purchased this company because of the rich legacy that they have in terms of all of these characters and the rich content, right? That intellectual property, but also because they're still writing really good content that eventually will be converted into toys and to other types of merchandise and maybe even into movies as well. So, but one thing you'll notice that he did not say here, he didn't say that AT&T loves comics. He did not go so far as to say, yes, AT&T loves comics. I don't think that they want to stop us from publishing comics because they love comics. AT&T, I don't think cares about comics. AT&T cares about many, many things. Comics is not one of them. Rich content that can be leveraged for other purposes is probably what AT&T cares about. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That is not necessarily a bad thing. So just, grain of salt with some of that stuff. So moving down, we talked about this already. What is going to happen to DC Universe? And so the original content that is on the DCU is migrating to HBO Max. And again, we talked about this. A lot of the layoffs were in the streaming area of the business, which makes sense because they have a competing service that is HBO Max, where all of the content from across the entire organization is going to be put in one place and streamed. You guys know it better than anyone. There are too many streaming services out there, whether you're talking about Hulu, Netflix, there's the Peacock. I mean, there is multiple streaming services that are out there. You can't pay $5, $7, $8, $10 for all of them. At a certain point, you have to cut back. And basically what I think they're doing is they're saying we need to get tight. We need to get tight in this area. Now, one area he talks about, I think what he is talking about is the part of the DCU that was where you could actually read comics. And he points to 20,000 to 25,000 different titles. I think that what he is talking about there is, again, those back issues that could be read digitally, kind of like Marvel Unlimited. I think that they're still trying to find a place to place that type of information for people to be able to check it out. So again, I think only time will tell what that actually looks like. So let me bounce back to the chat real quick to kind of see what you guys are talking about. Thomas Mayo just dropped a super chat, brother. Thank you very much. He says, I have so much to say regarding DC. I can't type it out in full thought before another one comes up. Love the chat. Love the Regie Collects fam. These are good people in here, and you are a good person. Thank you, Thomas, for the super chat right there, and congrats on the book that you picked up earlier. Scrolling down through the comments here. Man, I hope he's not just telling us what we want to hear. I hope he's telling us the truth. And again, only time will tell. With all of this stuff, only time will tell. I have some people out there that will say that what is happening right now in comics is basically going to all collapse. And they're like, it's going to happen in 5 to 7 years. The thing is that if you give something a long enough time horizon, then you could very much be right. Right? Anything could happen if you throw it out there and you give it enough time, right? Things change dramatically within a decade. And if you're taking up the vast majority of a decade, right? If you think about how much stuff can change in a decade and someone says within 5 to 7 years, things are going to change, you're right. That's the honest answer, because a lot changes. There are a lot of shifts. We didn't even have these streaming services 5 to 7 years ago. Now everybody and their mother has a streaming service. It is crazy. It is Chris Bigger, the Stream Wars 2020. Because we're all sitting at home, everyone's like, I'm going to launch a streaming service. The same way that everyone was an Amazon there for a while. You know, I mean, it's like if a business gets hot, everybody jumps into that business because there is money to be made, and then there is the consolidation of that market, and then it shifts somewhere else, right? It is the nature of business. It really is. Brandon's like, Netflix and Disney is all I need. I'm gonna be honest. I probably have to agree with that. We have Hulu. I never watch it. We have Amazon. I never really watch it. I only have it because of Amazon Prime, and it's just kind of like in there. But Netflix and Disney is pretty much all that I read right now. Shut the front door. Does he? Ryan Reynolds has a free streaming service? I did not know that. AT&T sees what Marvel did for Disney, and they want a piece. There you go. There you go, man. Because, man, talk about a cash cow. Talk about a cash cow. There are 168 people in here. Shout out to all of you guys. I definitely want to encourage you, if you guys are enjoying the content, to go ahead and smash the like button. Let the algorithm know that you are enjoying the content that is being put out right now. So what is the future of DC Direct? And I'm going to be honest, I did not really know what DC Direct was. But it is their in-house manufacturing arm, right? So what is the future of DC Direct? When we started, we were one of the first companies, if not the first, to go out and create a business that catered to the specialty market. That success has brought a lot of competitors and a lot of companies that are now in that space. So it's about evolving the model. We want to produce collectibles. We want to produce those collectibles and serve those fans, but we will probably shift to a higher price point collectible and more of a licensing model, working with manufacturers who we already work with. And so when I read that, he goes on here to say, from a consumer point of view, there will not be a change or drop off in the quality of the work they are seeing. Behind the scenes, how we create it and how we get it to them is going to change. Behind the scenes, how we create it and how we get it to them is going to change. That could be pointing to the distribution that he was just talking about there a second ago. The way that I read this one, this is interesting. We'll be showcased with a fun panel with J. Scott Campbell. Interesting. The way that I kind of read this one, I kind of took this one as the fact that they may start to work with other people that are already producing like statues and other like collectibles of that sort. So I readily took it to Todd McFarlane and them partnering up with Todd McFarlane to produce action figures, them potentially partnering up with a Sideshow if they're doing that, in XM Studios to basically license out their characters to these other entities to manufacture them at a high quality, high level, right? But what they get is they get none of the overhead of that manufacturing process or the staff. But what they do get is a nice check in the form of those licensing fees that get paid out to them that just goes right into the piggy bank. So when I read that section, we are basically shutting down DC Direct, our manufacturing arm, because we are going to focus on licensing out our characters for other people to actually produce. We will take that check and we will stick it in the bank. That's how I read that section. Again, I'm trying to read between the lines and interpret what he is actually saying here, but that's kind of how I was reading that one. So I want to pop back to the chat real quick. What is this? Everyone's thing right now seems to be the newish character introductions. Robin King, Null, Dylan, Cat Kid, Punchline, etc. But I don't think it's enough to keep a series going past 50 issues. You know, I was having this debate with somebody earlier today, and I'm not picking on Bayou Boy Entertainment, so don't take it this way. But if you think about the sheer number of characters that Stan Lee, Stephen Ditko, name of Jack Kirby, name a creator that they created, the number has to be incredibly high. and not all of those characters are super popular, right? They could say that it was a lot of hype, but people say now is a lot of hype. That's true, but Stan Lee was also a big hype artist, right? And he said even the Gibbet was Marvel's next greatest superstar. He was right about that, but he was also very much a hype man. Even Chris Claremont created 500 characters. My guess is that we could probably name in this room probably 20% of those 500 characters. He created a ton more characters than what we fully appreciate. So creation of characters is nothing new. Hyping books and characters for the purpose of selling books is nothing new. That has been there. That is a publisher's job, is to sell books through hype. Yes, ideally you want there to be some substance underneath that. You want there to actually be a good story underneath it and a good character underneath it. But so much of it is about the excitement of the new character and this story and this magic, these two characters coming together. That's what this stuff is about. And the mechanisms for that hype have changed, but it's been there. It's been there. That's not exactly something new. Again, in my mind, that is not exactly something new. DC has always played the licensing game close to the vest. It'd be nice to see what loosening of the reins would actually look like, says Thomas Mayo. We will see. We will see if that's the road. Here's the thing, is that you have all of these great characters. Why not license those characters and then oversee how your partners leverage those licenses to create these materials that actually help spread the popularity of your characters to other people? Why not do that? Why not license it and take that check and stick it in the bank and use that money to reinvest in other areas? And so maybe what we will see is them loosening up the reins for them to do some more of these types of deals. So sounds like a good idea, someone says. All right, so let me pop back over here. There's another part where he talks about, where do you see DC in 2 years? And he goes back to this idea of international content. You'll definitely see more international content. You're going to see a lot more digital content. When you talk about growing our business, both physical and digital, to me, the opportunities are global. So again, they are looking beyond the US. They're looking globally. That's where we'll be focusing on. Sometimes it takes the form of content that we take here and translate and sell it in other marketplaces. But we want to partner with creatives in various territories and unlock stories that feel authentic to their markets with characters that they can embrace as their own, and look for opportunities to take those characters and seed them throughout. So again, it's going to be very interesting how they do it. He is talking international, no doubt about this. So here's where I was alluding to earlier today. He says, with digital, that's more of a windowing issue. I've never heard that term before in my life. Windowing issue, I've never heard it. But we'll go out there and with digital content, and the stuff that performs well in digital also performs well in print. A good example of this is Injustice. The digital comics that tied into the video game, when that came out, it was the best-selling digital comic of the year. It outsold Batman and brought a lot of adjacent fans into our business. And when we took that content and reprinted it in physical form, we sold hundreds of thousands of units. It was as big of a hit in physical as it was in digital. And so again, to someone's comment earlier today, instead of like a Spotlight or a Marvel premiere or something like that, they may go digital. Digital builds up the audience, then they print it for that digital audience instead of some other kind of arrangement. That could be how they actually do it. So again, some interesting stuff that Jim Lee is revealing in this interview. And I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this interview with him. I think he was cryptic in several different places, potentially on purpose. Again, if I were the interviewer, I would, it's actually a man, Jim. I would have, nope, nope, not, nope, nope, nope. Kit. I would have definitely chosen to dig a little bit deeper, and maybe the reporter did dig, but didn't necessarily get an answer that was worth actually serving up as a comment. So who knows? Who knows? But I thought that this was a well done interview. I definitely enjoyed some of this stuff. Marvel may possibly follow suit on DC's stake. Not sure what that was. What that was referring to. Windowing means to show off. Really? Oh, thank you, brother, because I had no clue. Did you Google Did you Google that one? I have never heard that term before. Chris Bigger says Injustice was dope. I did not read it, so I will definitely take your word for it. But yeah, I mean, again, they are trying to, it appears, to learn from maybe some things that they've done before, you know. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see how this stuff plays out. Silver Age Surfer says Marvel seems to know what to do. DC doesn't make sense to me. Man, I think that DC is trying to figure it out. You know, I think that they are trying to figure it out. And I wish them luck, you know, because, I have a video that is going to be coming out this week. And it is a question of, should Marvel buy DC? And it's a video that I recorded a couple of days ago. And this is something that I've been hearing. I've been hearing people basically say Marvel should just buy DC. And in this vlog that I'll release this coming week, I'm actually going to spend some time talking about the pros and cons of that, whether that makes sense, doesn't make sense, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to preempt myself by talking about that here, but I definitely will encourage you guys to stay tuned for the video. But what I will say is that I hope that DC is successful. I really do. I really do. Let me restate. I hope that DC continues to be successful, because I believe that they are putting out some good stuff that people are enjoying. I think that regardless of who you are, there is always room to improve. And my hope is that they will get on the other side of this thing and they will be in a better, stronger position than what they're actually in right now. That is my hope. That is my belief. Fingers crossed if we will actually get there. Disney was well under 100. I'm not sure what that comment was about. I think you guys are actually talking about some of that stuff elsewhere. So DC needs to branch off. Where did the comment go? Needs to branch off a character like Marvel did with Spider-Man to Sony. That'll bring in some amazing cash, you know, if they can find someone that can actually do it. DC needs to streamline, focus on the Trinity and classic books. Sean, I appreciate you, brother. I definitely appreciate you, my friend. I am too stubborn. I read Marvel only. I respect it, bro. As a Marvel guy, I respect it. All right. So let me tell you guys a little bit. We'll do this real quick, and then we're going to get to this giveaway of this book. We've been already on here for about an hour. It's been a long show already. So I want to get through this real quick. With a couple of the books that I've actually read, I'm going to do this super quick. Stealth 4, solid read, highly recommended. Marauders 11, solid read. Kate Bishop is back. Booyah. The Resistance 4, read that. Solid read, still enjoying that one. Cable 2, I read it because Cable and the Cuckoos, it's okay. It's okay. That is a grade. Soke is a grade. I read Giant Size X-Men Phantom X. It was probably the best of all of the giant sizes. It's not saying a lot, but it was the best of them. And I will say that one was okay as well. And then Hellions 2, which I had a lot of hope for. It was okay. It was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. I read a lot of other stuff that I cannot tell you guys about because I'm actually reading stuff for the purpose of putting together a really awesome video. At least I hope it'll be a really awesome video. So we're not going to, not going to tell you all the other stuff that I read. We'll just stick with those 6 titles right there. So quick preview of some content that is going to be coming out from the channel over the coming week. As I mentioned already, I'm going to be releasing a video on whether Marvel should buy DC. I want to say that one is dropping on Monday. Timely video. I probably should have dropped it like on Thursday or Friday of last week, but it'll be what it'll be. So it'll come out on Monday. Hopefully it won't be outdated. I may have to go back and listen to it. Hopefully it won't be outdated by Monday, but it'll be what it'll be. Another vlog that I'm releasing is Should Collectors Settle? And I'm not going to give away this one, but that is a big question that a lot of people will kind of sort of, they will say things to me that makes me feel like they are settling. And so the question is, should we settle as collectors? I'll be doing a comic haul of new and old comics. And then I'm also going to be doing a Digging in My Shorts DC edition. I told you guys I had a couple of DC videos that are going to be coming out. So at least 2 videos this week will be focused on DC. Again, one of them is the Digging in My Shorts series. I'm also going to be releasing a podcast at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning Pacific time. So if you have a chance and can check that out, I definitely encourage you guys to check that one out. It should be a pretty good podcast. And someone was asking me basically about the lag time. It's typically about 2 weeks or so after I release something on the channel that it actually becomes a podcast. The reason for that is I release 4 videos a week and I only release 1 podcast a week. So sometimes there's a little bit more of a backlog on the podcast side just because of that. And I think people get that, but hopefully that provides a little bit of context. All right. So with that, we are going to get around to giving away this awesome book right now. This is Daredevil 168, the first appearance and the origin of Elektra. This is a cool book. One of you is actually going to walk away with this. This is a 9.0 with white pages. Pretty cool book. And we are going to give this thing away. And if you are indeed the winner of this particular book, I want to encourage you to send me an email as soon as you can to Regie@regiecollects.com so I can bundle this thing up and ship it out to you. Unfortunately, I was not able to get any more t-shirts and exclusive variants, but I have a feeling that you're really interested in the comic book anyway, so I will make sure that I get this sent out to you guys, to the winner that is, in a timely manner. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. We are going to roll some dice, and then we are going to give away a cool book. So I've rolled 10. We've rolled 10. We are going to randomize this list a total of 10 times, and then we are going to give away this awesome book. So bounce over to the list here. I'm going to expand this thing so that you guys can actually see it. And I'm scrolling from the bottom to the top. And these are all of the individuals that were able to successfully find the video this week that was released with the phrase. They were able to navigate over to the community tab, find the post where I was talking about this week's book, click the link, plug in the information that was needed, which partly was a phrase that I would have given you in one of the videos. These are all the folks that were able to successfully complete the process and are now in the running for a really awesome book from our sponsors over at Go Collect. All right. So with that, we are going to randomize this thing a total of 10 times, and then we're going to give it away. 314 people have entered this week's giveaway. So scrolling down, I think that is, what is that? 3 times. Here is 4. Scrolling, here is 5. Here is 6. Here is 7. That's 8. 9. And the winner of this week's Go Collect giveaway is Andrew. Andrew, you are the winner of this week's giveaway out of 314 people. Andrew, you are the winner, and you can see what the top 10 list actually looks like. I want to thank all 314 people that entered this week's giveaway. You guys I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the content, participate in the channel with all of your comments and things like that. I absolutely appreciate it. And I have a feeling that many of you probably also did the survey that was released on Friday of this week as a bonus video. Saw a lot of people commenting that they actually completed the survey. So I definitely want to thank you guys. At some point in the next, week and a half, I'll shut the survey down. We'll do some analysis, and then we will distill from that survey some findings, and we'll have a better idea of like how the market, at least the market that follows this channel, how the market is thinking about comics and collectibles. So I want to thank everyone that entered, that completed the survey. I definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. If you haven't yet done it, I definitely want to encourage you to swing by the channel, find the video in which I actually talk about the survey. It takes like 5 minutes to complete. It's not very lengthy, but I absolutely appreciate it. And again, if you are the winner of this book, send me an email to Regie@regiecollects.com so that I can get this bundled up for you. And I'm going to go ahead and hook you guys up with next week's book. What is this? Any variants left? And why did you ask if what? I never asked that question. There are some variants left. There's a couple more that are available on eBay. The ones that are on eBay, if you search for Regie Collects variant, those are going to be signed. And if you buy a book via my website, regiecollects.com, those are just regular raw books. And so I have a couple of books in both places. I am trying to hold some books back because I'm waiting to see how CGC is actually going to grade the mini books that are actually at with them right now. Fingers crossed for high grades, but I'm holding some books back in the event that some of the books don't come back at 9.8. I need to be ready to turn around a stack of books that can then go into CGC that will hopefully be 9.8. So there are variants available on eBay and on my website that are available for folks. And depending upon how CGC decides to do things, I still have some additional books that I'll be holding back. So robust. One of my favorite words is robust. All right. So one of the other things is I want to show you guys the awesome book that is going to be given away this week. And it is like a DC week. It's like a DC week because people are always like, you don't like DC. That is not true. That is not true. There's evidence. Here's a cool DC book. This is Batman 359, the first Killer Croc cover. This is a pretty dope book. I have this book in the pedigree collection. I have to do the air quotes, pedigree collection, but this is not from the pedigree. This is just a really cool book that I actually picked up that is going to be made available to you guys this week simply for watching the videos that come out from the channel. So definitely have a lot of love for DC. This is a pretty nice book, 9.6 off-white pages, first Killer Croc cover. And it is a pretty cool book. Even the back of it is dope. So again, somebody will actually pick this book up this week simply for watching videos that come out from the channel. It is a cool book. It really is. I am not making Gibbon underwear, Gibbon slippers. I am working on some cool stuff though. So I definitely want to encourage you guys to stay tuned because man, I'm having a lot of fun just coming up with different ideas. Honestly, to be honest with you, a lot of these ideas were ideas I had many months ago. It's just taking some time to get in a position to be able to do them the right way. So I am going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for taking some time to join me for this show. I hope that you guys enjoyed what we talked about over the course of this video. And if you did, I certainly want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button because it sends the right signal to YouTube that we are doing some good stuff over here. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Joe, who is celebrating his 39th wedding anniversary today. Congratulations to you, my friend, and congrats to your wife as well. At some point, you will have to let me know what the secret is to a long marriage because that is what I am hoping to do, my friend. I want to thank you guys again for spending a little bit of time with me. And if you need anything, I definitely want to encourage you guys to reach out to me. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can do it on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. And if you're feeling frisky, I definitely want to encourage you to check out the website, regiecollects.com. Take care.